Okay, if you look through your program, and welcome back from lunch. Welcome back from lunch. We need to proceed now. If you look through your program for today, okay, can we settle down? Let's settle down. Okay. I think you're set now. Okay. Okay. So we want to go into the next session, and for this particular session, what we want to request is that you'll be picking the key issues as we proceed. And for now, what we want to do is to invite a panel that is going to discuss what we have termed here as regional and continental pathways for livestock trade facilitation, harmonization, and African continental free trade area implementation. So this is what we want to get involved in at this point in time. I want to invite the panel that is supposed to be here right now. And to start us off, please, let's put our hands together for Dr. Dereje from ICPOLD. Please be upcoming. Okay. We also have Jimmy John Mark from ECOWAS. Please be coming. Let's put our hands together for Jimmy John Mark. Also, Kelvin Shikuku, also from ILRI. Please, let's put our hands together for Kelvin. Okay, we also have Lillian Kamanzi from ASO. Lillian, are you here? Okay, as we wait for her, we'll ask or request Dr. Bashiru, also representing ECAS. Please, let's put our hands together for Dr. Bashiru. And we have one presenter remaining, Dr. Tahira Mohammed, representing the private sector, please. Okay, we are missing Lillian. Madam Lillian Kamanzi, if you are nearby, it would be good to be here with us. So we want to move into this session with our panel. As is always the case, I think the gender memo was misplaced. So, are we together? Yeah, the gender memo seems to have been misplaced with this panel here as well. So, Tahira, you'll bear with us. Okay, yeah. So we want to move into this session where we'll be looking at regional and continental pathways for livestock trade facilitation, harmonization, and African continental free trade area implementation. So if you allow me, I will now shift this other side so that we can get this panel started. Okay, so welcome for this panel discussion. We want to move on to this area that we have indicated so that we can address some of the issues that we think are critical for us in terms of the policy to action framing. The essence of this discussion really is to get us moving on in terms of putting a finger on the issues that are there. This is what we want to discuss at this point in time. The policy issues that are critical for us. What I was proposing to do is to give each one of them a minute or two, because we have quite a number, a minute or two first, just to indicate to us who they are, a proper introduction of who they are, what they do, and especially in terms of the policy perspective that they bring to bear. After that, we will also give you individual questions to respond to that I will pose to you. But for now, in the first 1 or 2 minutes, please just indicate to us your name, proper, and also your involvement in terms of policy issues and so on. So this is what we want to start on, but we want to put emphasis on trade facilitation and this whole issue about harmonization that we are looking at. So may I invite, I think I'll start with you because you're next to me, and then we can proceed from there.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tahira Mohammed. I work with Dryland Observatory, which is based at the International Livestock Research Institute, but I'm here as a capacity of a representative from pastoral communities who are involved in herd keeping, but also in terms of marketing. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Calvin Shikuku. I work with the International Livestock Research Institute as an economist. Most of the work that I do is on risk management for vulnerable populations and also on market, particularly on market information systems.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Jimmy John Mark. I work with the ECOWAS Commission in Abuja. ECOWAS is the Regional Economic Community for West Africa. I'm the Program Officer for Livestock Development, Pastoralism, and Transhumance. So I actually advise the Commission on issues of policy on livestock development, pastoralism, and transhumance. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dirajo Akjira. I'm the director at IGAD, Center for Pastoral Areas and Livestock Development. IGAD is working on regional and cross-cutting issues with regard to transboundary animal disease, livestock trade, as well as also providing evidence for policy. Thank you. Great to meet you all.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bashiru Musa Demsa. I now retired from ECAS. I'm based in Yaoundé, Cameroon. I used to be the main focal point for AU-IBA at the Central African level to implement the CADEP process. I have been part of the team which crisscross Africa to implement this process, policies, to review policies and draft policy document and rule and regulations to be implemented in the different African states. So now I'm retired, I'm based in Yaoundé, Cameroon.
Okay, you can still hold the mic, Bashiru, now that we have reached you. There's another mic at the end there. Yeah. Okay. What we would wish to know from ECAS and Central Africa is that if you could shed some light in terms of the immediate policy and institutional actions that are needed to improve livestock market access, immediate policy actions and institutional actions that are needed to improve livestock market access, harmonize trade rules, and connect Central African livestock corridors with the neighboring regions and countries. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The main diagnosis that has been made while the CADEP process was being implemented based on the Maputo and Malabo Declaration was the fact that in every African countries, we have to set up a country cadet team where, an SPS committee is embedded. All the relevant working groups that are handling issues like flood, like disease outbreak, like drought, All of these working groups are embedded in this CADEP country team to be capacitated to handle all the issues related to the agricultural sector and particularly to the livestock development sector. So in this CADEP group, we established what we call the Livestock Policy Hub that is dedicated particularly to to support the countries to draft and elaborate livestock policies which will be, cascaded into livestock strategy, into veterinary legislation to handle livestock production, livestock trade in all African countries. So in Central Africa, what we succeeded to do in the very first place is to establish this livestock policy hub, to establish the SPS committee, and to backstop all our countries to draft livestock policies. So since yesterday or the beginning of this workshop meeting, we've been seeing what is happening in South Africa, in East Africa, and we really congratulate these two regions for all what have been done, to advance the livestock sector, to advance trade in Africa, and to mobilize all the partners, the stakeholders, to drive this issue forward. But we missed, to give a microphone to representative of Central Africa to tell us what's going on in our region in terms of livestock development, in terms of pastoralism, and in terms of trade. So we learn a lot since we are here. We learn a lot and we congratulate West Africa, the Horn of Africa, and South Africa. But as Africa, as a continent, we cannot, proceed in, silos. So, Central Africa has a particular position. It is at the heart of Africa. It shares its borders with all the region in Africa. So, what we have pinpointed as a major hindrance for the development of livestock in Central Africa is the persistence of and prevalence of animal diseases. So if we do not tackle this issue properly, we cannot succeed to develop livestock, and go ahead and trade within our region and with our different partners, which are East Africa, West Africa, and South Africa, and even North Africa. So Central Africa must be seen as a region which can play as a buffer zone for the whole of Africa to tackle animal disease properly at the very beginning, and later on to be seen as a sentinel zone. So if we succeed to break, the chain of transmission of transboundary animal diseases in Central Africa, then we will succeed to do it in the whole of Africa. So it's very important, as this one is a major hindrance for the development of the livestock sector in Central Africa. AU-IBA, as being the lead institution for the development of livestock sector in Africa, with the collaboration of different institutions, must be backstop Central Africa, to handle, to control transboundary animal disease so that we can develop pastoralism and trade. This is very, very important. And second, you cannot develop livestock without feed and fodder. And in Central Africa, the opportunity to develop value chain for feeder and fodder is very high, because livestock, animals now with the dynamic of drought, the dynamic of due to climate change, climate shock, Central Africa is now the home of millions of animals that come from West and East Africa to look for water, to look for pasture, then there is a possibility, an opportunity for us to develop this value chain of feeder and fodder so that we can export these commodities to West and East Africa. And even when we are, harboring or being home for these animals that come from abroad, we can feed our animals and export these feeds elsewhere in our neighboring countries and neighboring region. That's what I have to say for the moment.
Okay, thank you for elaborating that. Key issues that you are emphasizing: persistence of animal diseases and the issue of feed and fodder and how it can be captured. Thank you for those remarks with the experience of ACRES. Now, let's listen to Dr. Dereje from IGAD-ICPALD. And the concern is from IGAD's experience with livestock corridors. And we acknowledge that you have had quite some experience with this. SPS coordination, veterinary certification and cross-border livestock movement, livestock export, especially for animals and graded meat. Which practical policy or regulatory instruments have worked best and could be adapted for the region or even for continental livestock trade facilitation? So may I request your indulgence in giving us insights on this one? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I just want to highlight on a keynote where we are in terms of current standing. The live animal export from IGAD region is now in the area of 12 million. The meat export reaches around 50,000 tons. This has been progressively increasing if we look back, and also a bit of disruption for many reasons. Why I pick up this is there are a lot of factors that has been contributing towards this. Over years, there is a historical link between MENA and IGAD region. Traditionally, people were exporting and trading live animal. Sudan, Djibouti, Somalia are the frontiers. Now, with stringent, SPS measure, we transition to export through quarantine. And one of the things that we really been a bit of proud about is we have a standard quarantine that the whole region have adopted, which if any region aspire to live animal trade, particularly West Africa, where the disease situation is as it is known, and Central Africa, working on harmonized quarantine will be one of the areas that could be picked. From that, where are we? We used to have one quarantine in Djibouti. It's expanded to second. A couple of quarantine in Somalia, and now Kenya is also intensively working on it. And all this, there is a private sector drive now to expand that, and that means a live animal trade. Second area is meat. On meat, a lot has been done. If you look back 10 years or so, there was a lot of ban now and then with Middle East because of disease outbreak. Substantially, that has been reduced because of the effort of the countries, as also regional coordination. We have identified 10 transboundary animal disease as a region, and each of the country targeted. Out of the 10, one is already eradicated as a continent, render pest. And all countries have the same target, as well as also, SOPs and all. And there are a lot of capacity building training, understanding what the market on the other side needs, and also publishing and providing. And that has really driven the meat trade. We are now, Kenya is, almost 50% of what we are exported in the past 2 years is from Kenya. Kenya just joined very recently. Uganda is also joined. In my life, you know, there are a lot of experience exchange, talking to private sector, training when I was in Iqbal, and this has been already transitioned. And that's what the regional effort will do. Where are we heading now? The Africa continental free trade is there, and we are looking for within Africa trade. What is lacking there? We will not trade as such a live animal within Africa. It's very clear. We will trade a value-added animal product, let's say red meat. So what do we need? We need standard that is across through AFSTA and that is trade across the continent. There is also a bit of other areas of inter-reg coordination which AU-IBA can pick. You know, there are animals that are coming from Central Africa, also West Africa, all the way to western part of Ethiopia. So we need to have a harmonization mechanism in that, so that this barrier, production barrier and trade barrier, livestock animal disease, when we enter into that business, it's harmoniously happening in all areas. So that's what I can pick up, you know, on disease control. A lot of coordination that is happening at the regional level, but a lot of also veterinary service improvement, especially in areas that trade is driving, because there is a lot of demand. Where are we transition now? We have to now focus on pick one by one and focusing eradication. Like PPR is targeted. Most of the ground is in preparation phase. And this is a region that can take this one step and address, because more than 80% of what we export from this region is sheep and goats. It supports the huge part of the population. Eradication of PPR will substantially open up market for the Horn of Africa. And we need to address this, that appropriate public resource allocation come on board, because this is a public, it will create a lot of opportunities for future, and we drive this to happen. So these are the things that I just want to pick up without taking a lot of time.
I may still be on your case a little bit, because, you know, as we are here, we are keener on the investment perspectives. Any measures that you had taken in terms of addressing some of those investment issues? We know that you are linking up traders and you know, buyers and so on. So could you just indicate for a moment how you went about that one and which constraints were you trying to overcome with that? Yeah.
I think one you know, the private sector is now a lot area to talk, and it has taken from different perspectives, from finance, from logistic and so. You know, when volume of trade is growing, we will not afford to transport by air. There is a need for regional value chain. That, you know, logistics center hub will be somewhere else, and coordination. That is where we aspire, because the volume will grow and we can't continue like this. We see this area. The second area is, you know, we have outlet countries, Djibouti, Somalia, Sudan, and Kenya. And then these are the frontiers exporter country, for example. Inland, how is it seamlessly informal trade been reduced so that people formally trade and value add and export to the other region? That's where we are looking now. It is at that point that substantial change will come. What I mean, for example, there are 2 quarantine stations in Djibouti, which is supporting Ethiopia animal. Sometimes Ethiopians are exporting as Djibouti animal. Sometimes they are also allowed to export as an Ethiopian animal using the facility in Djibouti. This is a bilateral agreement. There are a lot of such an agreement to be triggered in different countries. South Sudan, Kenya, Uganda, Kenya, if we enhance. Another thing to assure you is that live animal trade will stay with us for longer. And even though we wish to reduce live animal export, it will stay with us for the reasons that I talked yesterday. We have to offtake, and that the business is not at that level to absorb all those live animal to convert to meat and export. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for elaborating that because ICPAL has done a lot in that area, especially in connecting traders and buyers in the Gulf countries. Now I would wish to come to John Mark. Basically, what we would wish to get from you is, what lessons can ECOWAS share on linking livestock trade, sustainable mobility, transhumance governance, and cross-border market systems, and how can these lessons support both formal trade and pastoral mobility? Just elaborate on us, for us, those kind of issues, and share with us the ECOWAS experience in this regard.
Okay, thank you. For ECOWAS, we prioritize livestock corridors because we know that these are the biggest drivers of livestock trade, but also of peace and security within the region. So yesterday I was saying that most of the cattle routes we have are thousands of years old, and these are being followed till date by our pastoralists. So ECOWAS, in our ECOWAS Transhumance Protocol of 1998, clearly spelled out and legitimized livestock movement and transhumance movement within the sub-region. So it has given it a legitimate status that you can move from one country to another with your livestock and it is valid. Now the ECOWAS transhumance certificate also means that you can be accepted in any country within the sub-region as a legitimate person or with your animals. So the focus has been for ECOWAS to prioritize setting up infrastructure and capacitating border agencies on what it means to implement the ECOWAS Transhumance Protocol. Over the years, different member states have looked at different issues around livestock movement. And of course, that impacts on livestock trade. And most of the issues are centered around veterinary governance and the governance of the transhuman routes, the management of rangelands, especially within the cross-border regions, and also resting points and veterinary stations. So ECOWAS realized that there are certain countries that do not have certain capacities. I'll start with the veterinary capacity. For example, Sierra Leone have very, very few veterinary doctors, and you don't expect them to be able to implement the ECOWAS Transhumance Protocol. So when we came together, we said, how do we help? Through a project, we have been able to link the Sierra Leonean government and the Nigerian government, because Nigeria has over 10,000 veterinary doctors. And some of them have moved now to Sierra Leone to provide such services. And this has helped to make sure that this protocol can be enforced and veterinary services can be provided. Still with the veterinary aspect, Nigeria just underwent the performance of veterinary services and passed it. This is the second time in the last 6 years. And that shows that there's growth in that region. Nigeria is driving because it's the biggest country by size and population in the region. It is driving that aspect. The National Veterinary Research Institute in Nigeria is a designated OIE reference lab and OHA reference lab, and it is providing valuable vaccines production and distribution within the sub-region. Just recently, through the LPRESS project, they have acquired different machines to ramp up their vaccine production to supply the whole region. Also through a project with FAO, I'm sure it is all over the continent with FAO, we are trying to eradicate PPR. So transanimal boundary diseases is a focus for the ECOWAS sub-region. Then if you look at the issue of border officials, like I was saying earlier, some countries do not have the capacity. So ECOWAS have gone ahead to institute training at different member states for border officials, for law enforcement officials, so that they can be able to provide valuable conflict mitigation and prevention strategies in those corridors. This is a project we are doing through the Pastoral project. We have set up community-level conflict resolution mechanisms and committees. We call them the transhumance committees. And these committees is made up of pastoralists, community leaders, agro producers, and other local officials. So what they are doing is to tackle conflicts at the local level, especially across border regions, without having to escalate it to the police or to the courts. And that has worked so well in most of the areas that we have focused on. And we are expanding this to other cross-border corridors in Pastoral too, because now we have the Pastoral 2 project where we are focusing on other regions we've not touched within the sub-region. In terms of infrastructure, we have been talking to member states. A lot of them have complied by setting up valuable infrastructure like resting points, like water points, by designing or gazetting cattle routes, because now what we see that the cattle routes that has been thousands of years old has been taken over by urbanization. And so there is a lot of encroachment, and that is bringing conflict. So right now we have spoken through the member states to say that these cattle routes need to be properly gazetted, marked out and gazetted, and a lot of it has been done. And where there's conflict, then they tackle it, and if it need be, we take it to the regional level. And it's actually helping a lot by helping that. We also have provision of feed and fodder, which is something that is quite ignored. I was saying yesterday that due to climate change, pastoralists can move from one point and found out there is no feed. So we have invited the private sector at designated points to provide feed and fodder, and pastoralists are ready to buy. They buy this feed and fodder at designated points, so it's actually creating business and enhancing trade. Also provision of veterinary services by private actors in different countries is being done. So these are some of the issues that we, in our experience, dealing with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, quite some experience. I think some of the issues are shared, but I think some are very critical. What, if you allow me for a minute before Kelvin gets over, what has been the experience with the transhumance protocol in terms of implementation? Because the concern that we have mostly with most policy documents is that they are very well crafted, but when it comes to implementation, several challenges arise. I don't know what the experience has been with transhumance. Is there anything of the sort, or is it running smoothly? Yeah.
So the implementation of transhumance protocol is mixed. There's a lot of successes, but also a lot of failures. And earlier on, I was outlining that part of the failures is that the pastoralists themselves were not consulted in drafting the protocol. And I was giving an example where you see one header to 50 animals. It is not practical. Or to say that he must be 18 years and above to be able to herd cattle across the route. It is against the sociocultural norms of the pastoralist, and so they resist it. But we also have the failure of the political actors to invest in the livestock corridors, and that has created tension and conflict in those corridors, and has led to a lot of security issues. But the most important issue is due to terrorism and security issues. In West Africa, as we may all be aware, we are now bedeviled with issues of terrorism and conflicts that is largely not the fault of the pastoralists. It is the fallout of the Libya war that has now, ravaged the whole sub-region. And unfortunately, pastoralists are the fall guys. They are now seen as the perpetrators of the violence and the conflicts. And so what is happening is that a lot of countries now are shutting their borders to pastoralism. We have seen local laws being enacted against the ECOWAS Transhumance Protocol. In Benin, in Guinea, we have these laws now in place. And just last week, we have gone to the government of Togo, not Benin. And Benin, even Togo, Benin. We've gone to Togo just last week to talk about this, and they promised that they are going to change it. In Guinea, we are fighting also to change that because, we cannot say we are promoting safe and secure pastoralism and closing our borders to pastoralism, which they have all signed to voluntarily. So we have seen these laws coming up, and this is just a response to political actors that maybe are just trying to just think about themselves and not the wider pastoralists. And the region is trying to tackle that in different ways. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it was important just to emphasize that point, that you can pass a policy, a regulation, and so on, but if the implementation is not followed up, it may not actually yield what it was intended to do. So I think it's important for us just to take note of that perspective, yeah. Especially this tendency of protection and closing borders and so on. I think we really have to rethink the whole process, yeah. Dr. Kelvin, this is on economic policy instruments. What we may want to hear from you is which economic policy instruments would most effectively improve livestock market access and investment readiness, particularly in pastoral systems, and how can these instruments be designed to avoid dependency, leakage, or market distortion, as it were. If you could shed some light for us, especially in terms of those policy instruments and market access and investment readiness. Yeah, please.
All right, thank you very much. I want to, I think, start by saying that, yeah, market access is important, but I think equally important is really thinking about how we can move from market access to really thinking about enhancing value of the livestock that, or the value of market participation. And when you reflect on that, one thing that comes immediately to mind is that we can not enhance value without protecting the assets, the key assets that pastoralists hold. And that's livestock, right? So we have seen from our data that there's still, although there's good progress in terms of market participation, there's still a sizable proportion of pastoralists that are engaging in markets by way of distress selling. And that, of course, is not is something we would want to kind of turn, right, and make sure that they can make value from their sales. And what, for us to kind of achieve that, again, we have to come up with efforts to kind of protect the key assets, as I said, but in ways that also crowd in investments in productivity enhancing input. And you'll see that I'm kind of deliberately making this connection between kind of risk protection on one hand, and on the other hand also crowding in investments in productivity enhancing inputs. Now, having said this, let's start with protection. We've heard in the morning about livestock insurance. A lot of that has been implemented at the country level. I think what we really require is to move from country to regional level. A lot of the issues we are talking about are kind of transboundary. So how do we move from country to region? And what's the benefit of even doing that? From where I sit, I see several benefits of doing that. One is that underwriters or the insurance industry stands to gain from an expanded market. That's one thing that the industry is struggling a lot. We don't yet have consistency in kind of maintaining insurance companies that are providing livestock insurance. What we see is that someone enters for a few days, exits, another one comes in, and livestock keepers are struggling to even keep up with who is selling what. Just when they are starting to build trust, someone exits. But I think this moving to region kind of offers that expanded market. It offers opportunity to diversify risks. I think Megasa in the morning also touched on that. We are struggling also with distributional infrastructure because, again, as we know, operating in pastoral areas, quite dispersed populations, distribution can be expensive. But again, when we move to regional level, we see that there might be benefits there in terms of kind of this shared distribution infrastructure. And someone talked about expertise. I think one of my panel members, that was in context with to something else. But again, moving to region allows that where there's already kind of very well established expertise, that can be shared across countries. Now, so what's the issue? Because coming now to policy instrument, the issue is that we are still struggling with affordability. And one way of kind of making sure there's affordability is supporting, for example, with providing premium supports. A typical example that you are all familiar with are subsidies. My point is that subsidies need to be implemented in ways that actually facilitate the private sector investment. This should be a way, because we are dealing with very complex products here, ways to enable populations to experiment with the product, learn how it works, and crowd in the demand, but then implemented in a phased approach so that subsequently, as we support the development, the capacity development of the insurance companies, that ultimately, there's sustainability. So it's not something that it's just 100% subsidized year in, year out. I mean, the private sector will not have a role in this. And once the government kind of pulls out or the public sector pulls out, you don't have an industry. So I think that premium support in the way that I'm describing is important in helping us really build an industry to be able to provide these services. But another way, again, thinking about sustainability here, is really something someone mentioned in the morning. We often think a lot about drought, that's important, or climate risk, but let's not forget that pastoralists are faced with many other risks that are interacting in very complex ways. And this necessitates bundling of insurance with other financial tools and even productivity enhancing inputs. It's happening or is starting to take shape, but there's still a lot to be done in that area to basically make sure we are creating a clear value proposition both to the private sector and also to the pastoralists. One thing that I know, again, still on this sustainability issue that is happening is kind of financing the premium in ways that allows flexibility on the side of pastoralists to pay the premium. The policy still becomes active, but then you kind of provide a mechanism to ensure, it's kind of you're lending the pastoralist in a way, right, to be able to afford the premium up front, but then ensuring that so that the person providing that lending has the assurance that in case of defaults is not losing out. So I know that a couple of insurance companies are already thinking about this idea of how a flexible program could be implemented. But yeah, so premium support is one of those instruments that would be very crucial to implement. And then another one that comes to my mind is really, it's not enough to de-risk the systems. It's critical, I think perhaps the starting point, but unless we invest also in developing the value chains, we will achieve very little. And so that's where, of course, kind of guaranteed credit schemes or even risk-sharing facilities that, kind of provide incentives for agripreneurs, aggregators, even processors to kind of want to invest in the value chain, but also easing the burden of, of collateral. I think that, again, that's taking shape. But again, in terms of sustainability, that is something that needs to really be done very closely with the private sector so that, again, as we are providing these guaranteed credits and people are starting to kind of increase access to financing, we also start to orient them towards the commercial rates, right? So we don't want a situation where immediately the guaranteed credits are removed. The market goes back to, again, where it was, which I think in the long term can create serious traps. I think I'll reflect on those two for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. there's only one aspect that you may need to clarify a little bit. The credit guarantee schemes, I think it would be in the interest of our participants to understand how that operates. Is it operated by private sector? Is it operated by public sector? Who guarantees these credits? Maybe you may elaborate that a little bit.
So the example that comes to maybe an easy one to explain is what NASL from Nigeria is doing, where again you have kind of a specific risk kind of sharing facility created, for example, within the central bank and working closely with the lenders. So basically so someone has a clear credit need, but lacks the collateral. Now, what is required, for example, in this context that I'm describing of Nigeria, is that then this person needs to approach NISO, which kind of does some due diligence to really check that you have the capacity or you'll be able to repay. And then they write something, kind of a credit guarantee, that when you show to the lender, they can be willing then to give you the credit. But there what you've done is that then there's someone else that is committing that I know this person, right? I've looked at their profile, their risk profiles, and it's okay to proceed to lend to them. In case of anything, I'm guaranteeing that. And then, of course, as you can imagine, there's perhaps a worry that, okay, but what happens if they default? Is the person who guaranteed the loan therefore going to, what happens to that person? And that's where, again, insurance comes in. So this is really a good example where you can kind of embed lending, within insurance schemes to offer guaranteed credits, but in ways that don't also put lenders or even those operating risk-sharing facilities at risk. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for looping in the Nigeria case. I think this is something that's a learning process for member states that we can pick up. I know many countries are still not yet there in terms of these processes. And so it's something to learn from. Tahira, you're next to me here now. So I need to throw a question to you. This is from a producer perspective. Basically, what you're saying is that, from your perspective as a producer, what are the two most critical constraints limiting participation in formal, domestic, and cross-border markets? And what specific policy, infrastructure, or financial measures would enable producers to meet market, SPS, traceability, and quality requirements as to make them competitive? It's quite a bit of a mouthful, but being a producer, I think you deal with more complex things than this one. So please indicate to us here.
Thank you so much. So for the producer perspective, first is knowing what do I have. Because many a times we talk about the problems and we lose ourselves in problems. But the starting question is, what do I have? And for me here, I want to emphasize on the animals that we have. Of course, there are varieties, the cattle, camel, sheep and goat, all of them. But as a producer who is like working with camels, like what breeds do I have? Are they good for meat? Are they good for milk? What are they good for? So this basic information is, for example, what I lack. And I would really appreciate if livestock trade policies would invest in understanding the animals that we have, the best breeders, the breeds in it that we have. But also, as a producer, one of the key things that I suffer with is the aspect of post-harvest losses. I know Professor Ahmed presented a CADEP agenda, objective number 2, which was really reducing the loss to 50%. And as a farmer who is producing milk and losing 50% because there is no energy connection then that is one of the biggest challenges I have. And for the past 3 days, we've been having this conversation. We talked about cold chain, but if the energy connection itself is not available, then how can we have that? In the dry land of Horn of Africa, Sahel, you go inside the actual places where animals are produced, there is no energy connection. And the opportunities we have are the solar energies, wind energies. How can we capitalize on those energies so that these people can be connected? Because if we are not connected, then we cannot be able to reduce that losses. So those are the things. And then another thing is capacity. I'm trying to align my response to the objective of the CADEP agenda, because if we want capacity, many a times we think capacity in terms of training few people here and there, but is that really capacity? Whose capacity are we building? And to answer this question, I align 3 areas. Number 1, community animal health workers. These people, we haven't mentioned them most of the time. And these people are the ones who report disease, who can respond to communities when they need, but also sometimes even provide medical services. Some of them are paramedics, like they are trained, so they understand. So these community animal health workers, extension workers are really essential in ensuring market, because sometimes when we don't have healthy animals, what do we even market? Because the standard is measured by the health, the feed, nutrition, all these things are intertwined. So we cannot separate one from the other. And then another key constraint, I know you asked too, but then they are all interconnected, is dissemination. I know this big forum is happening here. Is pastoralists in southern part of Ethiopia or northern part of Kenya aware of the benefits that are out there for them in terms of financial services? Or is it just selected few who are in this space are aware? How can we disseminate? Let's say, for example, in Kenya, there is Women Enterprise Fund, Youth Enterprise Fund, all these are there. But then how can it be made accessible to them in terms of information so that they know and they can go and look for it? Because having information itself is really an important tool, and it is actually lack of information that makes people excluded. And when we talk about inclusive market, then that dissemination is something also which is critical. And in terms of constraint, one thing that I cannot go without mentioning is the health of the animal. Because as you all know, policy around coordinated disease surveillance does not only serve as a one health agenda, but also enabling economic agenda. Because you know, COVID-19 and other diseases like MERS originate from zoonosis. And for example, as a farmer, I take my animal from here to Riyadh, and then I'm told they have foot and mouth diseases. What do I do with them? So this kind of disease surveillance, regionally coordinated, is something that even farmers really suffer from it. Sometimes you keep your animals for 20 years, for 5 years, you have all of this herd, and then all of a sudden you lose them. So that coordinated disease surveillance is something also that is really important. And finally, in this area, is producer association. You know, when you don't have bargaining power, like pastoralists are very much fragmented, the market are informal. But then capacity around enabling these producer associations so that they can really bring together, aggregate their animals, and really overcome this infrastructure and also market challenges that they experience. I think from me, that is it. But before I end, in terms of capacity, I want to add capacity in our curriculum. I remember talking to my sister Zahra yesterday, and she was telling me, I wish I did livestock management as my degree. And in our region, many people fancy different courses, business management, other courses, yeah. But then what about rangeland management, animal production, veterinary services? These are the key curriculum we need, and our students need to do that. But are we doing capacity development so that we encourage people to do that? Is there any policy instrument that encourages people from livestock-dominated area to really capitalize in these courses so that they can learn? And why am I saying this? For example, in veterinary school, vets complete their 4-year degrees without even touching camel. Why? Because in many countries, camels are not even considered as livestock. But then we know camels are one of the drought-resilient animals. In Kenya, people are even moving to camel. Even very places like southern part of Kenya where camels were not really dominant, people are now going to that. Why? Because they are drought-resistant. They also have longer lactation period. That means they have more milk, more longer time. So this kind of things, I think, are what, as a producer, I need to be emphasized.
Okay, thank you. I think you have been challenged here. How many people have not seen a camel?
Or even tested camel products. I know we've had meat, fish, chips, I mean, all of the things, but camel thing?
Yeah. Okay, we have a challenge here. Okay, but I think that's a worthy cause. That's something we really should take seriously. But Tahira, there's one or two things that we may need you to enlighten us on, because you have indicated these issues. There is a key one. If you consider what transpired early this morning with the presentation from Strathmore, with the off-takers and so on, and the whole issue, if you looked at the model, you could see that there's some necessary skills that producers should also have. And basically what I'm driving at, what about capacity building in terms of business skills development and so on? Because you could see some of those connections needed a lot of understanding from this perspective. Is that a need that, that should be addressed?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think for capacity, there are different layers, as I said, like the personnel. But as a producer, like, of course, understanding how to do business, all these things is key. But to be honest, like, pastoralists already have these skills. They've been trading, like our forefathers are trading before we even had any training skills. Let me give you an example in where I come from. Like a mother who is having like a herd of camel, she can separate the ones which are sick, the young ones, the milk animals, and she can move them to places, and she knows which one are ready for market. So she does that. As much as the training and in skills development is important, what is important is the capacity for them to really trade. And what these capacities are is, for example, really making them to, like, the movement easy for them. For example, a woman who is moving from Chalbi Desert, I know you know Chalbi Desert, to Wajir to take her camel. She's trekking 480 kilometers. Imagine that. The heat stress, the animals' body losing the body weight, and sometimes even succumbing to insecurities. And then they have to reach Wajir market for that animals to come to Berbera in Somalia. So you see, like, these are actually, for me, capacity is not just the training skills for me to do business. It's really facilitating so that this trade will happen, facilitating so that these animals are safe in terms of health, but also they can be maintained from heat stress and that, like, instrument that I mentioned.
All right. Having listened to that, these skills were there. We only need to enhance them, I think. This is what you're saying. I would wish at this juncture just to open the discussion so that we can contribute from our perspective, and then we can see how we can handle the policy issues that are arising from here. So if you have any question, you can direct it to a specific panelist, and then you can get a response. So I want to open it up now for contributions. I can see Andrew. Andrew, is your hand up or tending to go up? Okay, thanks. Okay. Any other person at the moment? Okay. Yes, you can proceed as of now. Did I see any other hand up or not yet? Okay. As the others think about it, let's hear from Andrew. Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. Mine is I don't know whether it's a question, but it's a comment, maybe for information about ECOWAS. My name is Andrew Edewa from Trademark Africa, and we currently are working with the ECOWAS Commission to, we have developed an SPS TBT roadmap for the corridors in West Africa, more particularly the Abidjan-Lagos corridor. And we are adopting the same approach also for other corridors like the Djibouti corridor, all the way up to Berbera, and also to the Southern Africa corridors all the way to Lobito, to come up with an action plan, a roadmap that can then rally all investors, governments, member states, private sector together to a unified vision and to pool resources towards an implementation of some kind of a corridor approach to addressing all the challenges, be it cold chain, be it one-stop border posts, be it SOPs, procedures at the borders around the border crossings, things to do with quarantine facilities, those investments in agro-processing, storage, warehousing, and all those aspects. I would like, and we'll be happy to discuss that. That roadmap has been just finalized recently for ECOWAS, and one is being done for those Southern Africa corridors. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I think John Mark has heard you, so he might just as well. Yeah, yeah. You comment, please. Okay. Is there another comment? Was there somebody? Okay. Looks like you may just as well. Who? Okay. Okay. Harrison, were you raising your hand or did you have an issue to raise? Or it has evaporated?
It was almost evaporating, but I think I have an issue because number one, I have two issues. One is on insurance because like in Kenya, we've really tried to implement IBLI, index-based livestock insurance for some time. And all along we have tried to incorporate or entice private sector to take up the services to be able to give those packages at market rate to the producers. But I'm still seeing a lot of leaning towards government support. And I would like to see from those who are practicing, where are we not getting right so that at least government comes to initiate, to show the way. We have done it now for over 5 years. Is it 5 what? So we're almost getting to 10 years. And the take up by the private sector looks like it is slower. Where is that in bottleneck? And what have we tried to do to unlock so that they can now be able to pick up and run it on their own? The other area is on the producer level, market access. Our biggest handle as Kenya is that we have so many people who want to be in livestock and meat business. But anytime they engage with a serious buyer or a serious market, they are faced with only two big challenges. One, the quality of the animals they deliver to that market. You compare what they will deliver from Eastern Africa and Horn of Africa with what comes from Australia, the price gap is too big. Our prices will range from $7, actually 6 to 8. The other people's price will range from around $10 to almost 14. Now you can see that gap. So the issue is quality. We need to bridge the gap of quality, and that's why we were trying to approach it through feedlotting. But then the uptake of that feedlotting also requires a lot of background working so that you don't get the first batch to feedlot. Then when you want the second batch, you cannot get it because the producers of the young stock are not well prepared. We need that kind of connectivity, and probably this is the forum where we can address it. So those who are, the second issue is the quantities. You are given an amount of probably 2,000 animals in a month, but you are able to mobilize the first one. The second one you can't get, especially if they need consistent quality and quantity. That is the area we want to work, and that's where we expected private sector to assist in those who want now to produce animals to be able to meet the quality and the quantity, and try to get a package for financing. And I believe that should be the area where the ladies should be coming in through, so that our producers can now be capacitated to meet the demands of the expected market. Those are my two areas. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, there's another hand up there. Yes. Proceed.
Thank you. I'm Alex Jebayi. I'm from the Ministry of Livestock in Cameroon. I will go in French because my brothers of Chad can complete my my question. Can I go? Okay.
Give people a few minutes. Can you give people a few minutes to put off
Okay.
their earphones? Yeah, I think you can proceed.
Ok, merci beaucoup. Je crois que un des premiers points, comme l'a dit M. Chouaïboutou, a pris de parole tout à l'heure, l'Afrique centrale a un retard quand même dans la mise en place de toutes ces stratégies liées au commerce de bétail. Un des gros problèmes, une des grosses contraintes, c'est d'abord cette harmonisation régionale. Parce que ECAS, c'est l'Afrique centrale. Mais l'Afrique centrale en elle-même est divisée encore en CEMAC. CEMAC, c'est les 6 pays de la CEMAC qui ont pour le moment des normes régionales de libre circulation. Mais avec le voisin nigérian, par exemple, qui a une longue frontière avec le Cameroun, et par où le bétail passe, il n'y a pas encore d'harmonisation normative par rapport au passage des bêtes. Pourtant, il y a des corridors identifiés qui permettent à ces bêtes de circuler. Ça cause beaucoup de problèmes dans l'échange et dans la communication même, en termes de statistiques et en termes de bêtes, en termes de suivi de maladies. Je voudrais ici ressortir certains aspects, notamment au niveau des corridors, sur le plan économique et pour les hommes d'affaires. On a pensé par exemple qu'il faudrait encourager la création de laboratoires proches des frontières pour faciliter justement, après ce travail de l'harmonisation, une espèce de rapidité dans l'exécution, n'est-ce pas, des tâches liées à ce trading. Parce que comme disait quelqu'un hier, le trading, c'est entre les pays. Si entre deux pays, déjà au niveau de l'harmonisation, il n'y a pas d'harmonisation, et qu'au niveau des frontières, au moment du transfert des bêtes, l'analyse médicale, je veux dire sanitaire, est complexe, ça crée d'autres contraintes. Donc, c'est ce que je voulais faire ressortir ici, que en Afrique centrale, globalement, on est encore au niveau vraiment de l'harmonisation. Deuxièmement, au niveau des corridors identifiés, en termes d'infrastructure, il y a tout à faire. Il y a tout à faire. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Yes, harmonization is critical, as you indicated, but maybe I'm not the best person to respond to this. Dr. Bashiru, you want to make a comment on that issue? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Well, thank you for the representative of Cameroon for giving me this opportunity, because at the very beginning, I really wanted to compliment my earlier, words. So, Central Africa is has a peculiarity, because in terms of policy, in terms of institutional landscape, Central Africa is a little bit different from the other red. So within Central Africa, you have ECAS, which is recognized by African Union, and we also have CEMAC, which is an institution formed with 6 states which share the French currency. So ECAS, the DNA of ECAS is peace and security and environmental protection, while CEMAC is dealing with economy. And within CEMAC, we have Sebevira, which is a specialized institution of CEMAC, which deal with livestock trade, meat, fishery product. And it concerns 6 CEMAC countries. They are here, they are present, and for this APMD project, at the very beginning, the project focused on East Africa and West Africa. And we sent a request to get the Central African countries being involved. So we thank AUIBA for inviting Central African countries such as Cameroon, Chad, Central African Republic, even DRC was supposed to be here, but because of Ebola virus, they couldn't travel. So the main problem in Africa now, we as Central Africa, we are a little bit marginalized because of lack of capacity and also because we are French speaking. When we come to this kind of forum, we cannot express ourselves properly because we really face this barrier of language. But AUIBA is doing a lot of effort, to have translation, get everybody in the same venue, have to face, discussion, things like that. But I think that in the near future, everything will be solved. So, as I said, unless if you are flying, when you come from one part of the Africa to another, you cannot avoid ACAS. So it's very important to capacitate our region. To do some benchmarking meeting with other RECs where experiences, good practice are shared on a regular basis so that all of us can move in the right direction at the same pace and at the same level with respect of the guidelines of the standard setting organization. The representative of Cameroon was saying that we are not complying with these standards because we do not have capacities. And we share border with Nigeria, we share border with other RECs, and our corridors are not really built in a proper way to channel livestock and livestock product, so that all of these things, even if we cannot achieve to do it within that project, but at least it is an opportunity to highlight, to showcase the reality of our region, so that in the coming project, proper attention must be given to ACAS to strengthen our capacity so that all of us can speak the same language, be at the same pace, and move to the right direction with the respect or being in line with the regulation or the guideline of the standard setting organization. We are doing a lot of effort. Sebevira, is doing a lot of efforts, to get animal move from Chad toward all the other Central African countries like Gabon, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Cameroon, and even in Nigeria, of course. So we are waiting for Nigeria to take the lead, being the lighthouse. Okay, I think that I am done. So that to embark Central Africa in this process so that we can learn from West Africa and being at the same page as you. Thank you very much. That's what I wanted to highlight.
Okay, thank you. I think, John Mark, you had an issue to respond to, and then we can come back to Derije. Yeah.
I didn't get you.
Yeah, I think I want to go to John Mark just to respond to some other issue that was there. Thank you, Bashiru, for that. And then we can come back to Derije to share the issues here.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to respond to the comment from Trademark Africa. I'm aware that, and I know your representative have been coming to ECOWAS, but there's a clear distinction between the Abidjan-Lagos corridor. It's a trade corridor, but it is not a livestock corridor. It has to be clear. And the priority that Trademark has set did not include livestock. It's fish, rice, and the rest. Okay? So I want us to understand how livestock flows within West Africa. Yesterday I was saying that most of the production happened in the Sahelian states, which are north. Okay? They are in the northern, or rather, the northern as part of West Africa. But the consumption is in the coastal region. So animals flow from Mauritania, Senegal, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, to Nigeria. Nigeria is the biggest consumer of livestock and livestock products, followed by Ghana, Ivory Coast. Okay, but the most consumption also, for example, Lagos State in Nigeria, just one state. Nigeria has 36 states and then the FCT. Correct me if I'm wrong, Abyss Group, who are also into meat. Lagos slaughters over 1,000 heads of cattle every day. Over 1,000 every day. Okay? So where is that cattle coming from? Because it's not Lagos. It's coming from the northern part of Nigeria. And where do they get it from? From Cameroon, from Chad, from Niger, from Mali. All that cattle pours into the northern part of Nigeria and it's being trucked to Lagos. That's just one state. So just imagine the consumption across the country. Same with Ghana. Cattle flows from Burkina Faso into the northern part of Ghana and then down to the coastal area. That's how the flow is. But if you look at the corridor between Abidjan, these are all, the corridor is coastal. It's Abidjan, Lomé, Cotonou, Lagos. And livestock is not involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wanted to comment on two issues that are picked up. Number one, very briefly. The second one, a little bit of context. I wanted to talk about index-based livestock insurance, where we are. We are one of the regions that really a lot of pilot happened, a lot of fine-tuning happened in index livestock insurance. A lot of knowledge, even people who are sitting in this room with a tremendous operation in private sector. My brother on that corner. What is lacking? Insurance. Let's go back to the basic. If you want to insure your car, there are products on market. You go here, or you go for third party, you go or something. So that product is floating. It's up to you. The law is also a little bit push you to pick it up. So that's insurance. We come to this livestock insurance. We have done a lot. So it's agriculture. It's a very risky business on livestock. What can the government put on table? Because it has to be subsidized. We had this morning presentation. When I do my figure, it is 2080. Is this sustainable? Can we float that product where government can provide 80% of the premium and then the farmer 20? Is that what we float so that now it is picked up? So we need to look for the optimum where the government is willing money, where the harder. I'm talking at production level. That's one. The second area is triggering, an independent triggering organ. Who declared drought? Is it the insurance company? Is it the Ministry of Livestock? Or is it somewhere else? We need to sort out this. We have specialized center in the region, in the countries who can do. We couldn't. The third area is institution. Where should I go? We are talking about index-based insurance for a reason. Because I want to insure pastoralists in Marsabit. They are like that. Which institution should I talk so that I get my premium and then I provide the product that I have and it moves. So there must be an anchor institution, parastatal, who can facilitate. So we keep putting a lot of money, so amazing lesson, address particular thing and leave. And I don't know how far we are going with this. And there is a lot of documentation. There are things what we can do. We need to be serious about it if we want to pick livestock insurance for two reasons. Number one, development fund is drying now. We are looking at private sector and a little bit of public investment. That is because NGOs were giving, we will get a lot of money from there and there. It has been distorting market. Business is now serious. We need to fix this to move forward. Every pilot, we are inspired. Everybody will tell you, what is there, and never been really taking serious where we want to take. So we are not there. And in the livestock insurance, we need to do it. We need to really listen to each other, because our development supporters are also going in one line. And I have a lot of experience dealing with drive. Number two, on price, my brother, if every trader who started livestock business write story, it's a lot. It's a cash economy. Everybody has lost on the way. I think we are getting better and better. On the other end, we have gone to the lowest level of market. And also we have gone to the broker, not the main trade. And there are a lot of to fix. Our animals, particularly I can say sheep and goat, they go from the range to the market. You don't add value, you don't expect that price, and you go to also, you are not really branding your animal. You know, we have been to the Middle East, we have seen our goats, we have seen goats from Pakistan. You say, and there are some people who are buying and finishing it there. So I think we are better over time. We are learning, we are also the business people are improving, it's going well. It was not too much unregulated. We left to everyone, and then we have distorted our market, but we can fix it. That's what I can say. Thank you.
Kelvin, you had something to add on insurance? Yeah, sure.
Very quickly to respond, Herzon is asking a difficult question on why the private sector is not staying and what the government is doing wrong. I don't think the government is doing anything wrong. When I speak a lot with private sector, right? I mean, as you know, International Livestock Research Institute has been at the center of developing and implementing this product. One thing they raise is really capacity, and you appreciate most of them, they really don't have the capacity yet for distribution. So what happens, of course, is that, okay, if you, and the business case also for private sector is not clear. Most of the private sector have not yet kind of clarified what the business case is for them. You know, the government comes and says, okay, we have 90% subsidy. They jump on it, I think, without really thinking carefully about the business case. And then it's only when they start implementing, they realize that people are buying this in very small units, right? I mean, if, for example, Drive says we'll subsidize up to 5 tropical livestock units, it rarely goes beyond that, right? A few people, of course, will, but you see that it's limited to just a few, which gives you the impression that people are just still testing with this. We haven't yet gotten to a point where pastoralists can say they fully understand the concept of paying a small premium and knowing very well that it might or may not trigger. That's still not being very communicated very clearly. And so what you see is that we are not really struggling with take-up. The biggest issue is when it comes to renewals, because now then they start knowing that, okay, I think I took up something that I had not fully understood how it works. For me, with these huge investments, there is a big opportunity to kind of help the private sector build their capacity in last mile delivery. There's a big opportunity for us to not just think about individual kind of distribution, but to move to aggregation. You know, Dr. Chuma was talking about the role that, for example, cooperatives bring. Ethiopia can tell you, many years of implementing this with the Oromia Insurance Company, where the cooperative representatives themselves kind of played the role of collecting the premium on behalf of the insurance company, therefore reducing the transaction costs that are involved in that aspect. And that, of course, increases affordability. So, but I think we need to work with the private sector first to clarify the business case, and then to support them to build capacity in distribution, and lastly, to really think about how we can bundle solutions so that they can grow their demand. Yeah, but I think it's a big topic.
Okay, yeah. I'm sure Harrison knows that it's a complicated one. It's a really complex topic that needs a lot of input. Yeah, but I think it's important to understand that this is the reason why we are here. We are here to unravel some of these things that will enhance or advance, pastoral livestock market. So if that insurance issue is a thorny one, we need to get to the bottom of it so that we can resolve it and see how to move forward with it. Rashid, did you have something? Yeah, a quick one because we want to do another comment here.
Sure, thank you. I wanted to add, am I clear? I wanted to add to the insurance discussion. I think the challenge for the hello. Oh, you can hear?
You can hear him?
Hello, hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Okay. I think the key challenge for the industry, especially the insurance industry, and I speak from experience, being part of the industry the last 15 years. I was the CEO who introduced the IBLI in Kenya, is the ability to aggregate sufficient business. That's the single biggest challenge for the insurance industry. The business case for an insurer is good only if you can amass sufficient critical mass. And the agri-climate insurance, especially the livestock insurance for pastoral communities, that aggregation is costly. The transaction cost is high. The region is expansive. The cost of creating a channel that brings together enough business for an insurer, that is the killer, the showstopper for the insurance industry. If somehow that can be solved, then the insurance industry will be interested. It's not the risk. It's not for fear of the risk. It's for fear of the cost of transaction. Thank you.
Okay, I think this is why we are learning from these processes, because the intervention that has been mentioned is in terms of, can you have an intermediate entity like the cooperative there that can lower some of those costs? I think these are the approaches that we can learn from. Yeah, you'll excuse me, I'll want to leave it at that point so that we give the panelists one last question as they also wrap up their comments. This is basically focusing on the reason why we are up here. We are wanting you to share with us from an institutional perspective, one or two priority policy actions. I think I need to emphasize that. If you can share with us one or two priority policy actions that should be included in this APMD policy to action matrix as we move forward. And basically, if you're in a position to say who can lead it, that would help us, would assist us in terms of moving forward. So one or two policy priority actions that you, from your perspective or institutional perspective, is critical for us so that we can go forward and put it in the policy to action matrix that we are looking at in the next few minutes. So again, now I'll start here and then end the other side. So please, Tahira.
I don't know why the speaker is refusing to work for me. Yeah, so for me, one priority policy area is to really strengthen the evidence base of the market value of our animal products. To strengthen the evidence base. Sometimes you want to make the case, but the evidence are not coherent. So you will have one figure speaking differently, the other one. So strengthening that is really a key priority area, especially to have real-time data on prices, on trade flows, but also the demand side of the product that we are producing as a country. And then the second priority area as a producer is, I repeat again, is really to have coordinated disease surveillance, because disease, we cannot market what we don't have. We cannot market if we don't have healthy animals. So for me, I think those are the two priority areas for improving market in pastoral systems. Thank you.
Yeah, I think for me, it's really about ensuring or increasing financial inclusion. And for this, my encouragement in terms of policy is to not think about these financial instruments in isolation, but really consider kind of bundled financial solutions, particularly embedding insurance and credit.
From my viewpoint, the first priority will be the removal of the non-trade barriers, especially within the sub-region of West Africa. It is a big issue because pastoralists are faced with multiple taxations, roadblocks, and so many other issues that hamper livestock and pastoralist economies across West Africa region. So that's the first priority of putting policy to action for West Africa. The second one is the livestock corridor infrastructure and capacity building. If member states can build on infrastructure and commit to building infrastructure, which, by the way, does not just serve the pastoralist and livestock markets, but it's a public good that will promote peace and security in the end. So for me, if we can build on the livestock corridor infrastructure and capacity building of border agencies, like I spoke about, it will be a game changer for West African pastoralists and economy in general. Thank you.
Just before you proceed, I would wish John Mark just to elaborate a little bit. What exactly constitutes this livestock corridor infrastructure?
So the livestock corridor infrastructure are veterinary posts, resting points, water points, border stations that cater to pastoralists. Like we said, we have the International Tribeswomen's Certificate, but if the border officials are not trained enough to issue it or to understand it, then it will be a big problem. Also, in terms of capacity building, also conflict management committees at the borders and markets. Most of our livestock markets in West Africa are at the borders. So, the trade is happening more informally. But if this is fixed, you have more formal trade happening. So these are the infrastructure I want to I'm pointing out.
Yeah. Thank you for that clarification. We needed that so that we are, on the same page in terms of what constitutes infrastructure. Yeah. Okay, Dr. Derije.
Thank you very much. I just want to talk in two areas. Number one is the core of the production is the land. Land is communally owned. I think given the Minister of Agriculture is coming, the ask has to be a communal land governance system to be really publicly picked and worked on. Otherwise, we are losing the biggest part because it is seductive for everyone to go to rangeland and we are fragmenting. That's one area is cross-cutting across. The second area is really, we start from CADEP. The allocation that head of state has promised has to reach agriculture. Within agriculture, this marginalization of livestock also have to be talked. Anybody can walk into Ministry of Agriculture. You will see a range of projects in crop and nothing this side. If we talk about leads and enhancing leads to the extent, if we enhance disease control, if we enhance regulatory departments of livestock, that public investment allocation is key. And I think these are the two things that I want to see. Thank you.
Even microphone went to silence, I don't know. So for ACAS, for Central Africa, the two main points where we have to act is animal production and livestock trade. And for animal production, you have two major factors. It is animal health and animal nutrition. So to address animal health and animal nutrition, you first of all have to know what are the guidelines of the standard setting organization are all about. So if you comply with these guidelines, you can craft, draft, elaborate sound animal health and nutrition policy that can match up to the expectation on producers and consumers. And second, we have to trade with our neighbors. I forgot to tell you that ECAS and ECOWAS are twin rate almost, because the environment and the culture is almost the same. We have a memorandum of understanding with ECOWAS so that we can trade. Sebevira has even elaborated also what we call the passport for livestock to facilitate the movement of livestock from Central Africa, within Central Africa, and from Central Africa to West Africa. And we are planning also to sign a memorandum of understanding with IGAD, but we failed to do that. But I think that in the next coming month, this memorandum of understanding will be signed, and it will facilitate the movement of animals between the two regions also. So we have also to build corridors like my colleague from ECOWAS has described, that what we need. And if all these infrastructure are built, guidelines are followed, and memorandum of understanding are signed between RECs, then we'll have a big picture of what livestock trade is all about in our continent, and will advance this sector to contribute to the GDP of our countries and region for the betterment of our whole society. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. We have listened, we have heard. We now have to move on with rolling our sleeves and making sure that some of these policy issues are tackled properly so that we can advance the course of the pastoral livestock development. I want you to put your hands together now. Okay, fine. Thank you very much. I wanted to close this, but I see Chad is still insisting. If there's something that is really burning that can bring the house down, we don't want to do that. So please, please proceed before we close this question.
Merci, monsieur le modérateur. Une minute. Hein. Je pense que dans la note conceptuelle, les 5 thèmes ont été bien mentionnés. Il y a une thématique qui est très importante et qui parle donc de système d'information sur le marché. Ça, c'est important. Je pense c'est comme si on a un peu occulté donc ce point-là. Il est très important. Dans les propositions qui viennent d'être faites, je pense qu'il faut quand même qu'on développe ce système d'information-là. Il y a déjà une expérience au niveau de SILS. Le SILS est passé donc d'un système simple à une deuxième génération vers une digitalisation donc, de ces systèmes-là. Maintenant, vous pouvez être à Ouaga, quelque part en Afrique de l'Ouest, vous pouvez avoir déjà des informations sur le marché tchadien. Donc, toutes les informations qui sont collectées dans l'espace sahélien là, et centralisées au niveau donc, de SILS et qu'on peut exploiter. Donc, c'est vraiment un point qu'il faut au moins mettre l'accent dessus.
Okay, please, just make your point.
Merci. C'est juste seulement pour compléter le représentant du Tchad. On a parlé ce matin, d'ailleurs mon grand frère Bachirou l'avait bien mentionné. Moi je représente la CBVIRA. Nous avons développé sur la plateforme, on a une plateforme en 2025 qu'on avait développée sur les informations en ce qui concerne le pastoralisme. Toutes les informations, on a eu à former des agents sur le terrain, mais comme il avait dit, la CEMAC c'est juste seulement les 6 États. Et dans les 6 États, nous mettons l'accent beaucoup plus sur les zones d'élevage qui est le Cameroun, le Tchad et la Centrafrique. Donc ce sont les bassins de production. Donc tout ça se passe au niveau de ces pays. Et on a eu à former des agents sur le terrain qui vont collecter les informations en ce qui concerne la transhumance. Chez nous, la mobilité se pose à 2 niveaux. On a la mobilité qui concerne le commerce, on a la mobilité transfrontalière en ce qui concerne le pâturage. Ça, c'est la transhumance qui peut passer du Tchad au Cameroun, du Centrafrique au Cameroun, ou bien du Cameroun en Centrafrique, et même des animaux qui viennent du Niger, qui passent directement, traversent tout le Tchad pour aller jusqu'à Centrafrique, des animaux qui viennent du Nigeria, qui traversent pour aller. Donc tout ça, ça concerne la transhumance. Maintenant, pour ce qui est du bétail, comme il l'avait dit, on a développé un outil qu'on appelle le passeport pour le bétail, pour les animaux qui sont pour le commerce, et spécifiquement. On donne un document pour traverser, pour aller accéder au marché dans la zone de l'Afrique centrale et même en dehors, en passant au Nigeria. Et là, on est en train de vouloir vraiment aller plus loin pour qu'on puisse vraiment avoir un accord avec le Nigeria et pour qu'il y ait ces documents soient connus à leur niveau pour que la facilitation. En d'autres termes, on a un petit problème parce que les animaux ne sont pas transportés par les véhicules, par des camionnettes. Malheureusement, ce sont des animaux qui traversent à pied. Donc, c'est pourquoi parfois les États ont du mal à pouvoir mieux contrôler, étant donné que les frontières sont poreuses. Donc, voilà les difficultés qu'il y a. On est en train de travailler. On a même eu dernièrement, à travers un projet, pour pouvoir identifier les différents itinéraires que nous avons mis à la disposition la fois dernière à l'IABIRA par rapport à ces itinéraires, les plans de ces itinéraires à travers PASCO. Donc je pense qu'on a des informations sur lesquelles, s'il y a des besoins, on va partager. On peut essayer de vouloir vraiment faciliter l'exportation du bétail. Merci beaucoup. C'est juste des informations complémentaires.
Okay, thank you very much, even for being patient to share with us that kind of information that is critical. I think it's important just to underscore the fact that this is a sharing process. This is why we are here, and we're learning from one another. I want to bring this to a close, so please, if you can offer my panelists a second round of applause as we stand here. Okay, thank you very much. I think it is a tradition now that the panelists stand here for a photo, and please, my panelists, oblige us with that photo so that we can have that on record. Okay. So thank you very much for bearing with us. Are we okay? Can you hear? Okay. Okay, I think let's proceed. There's one activity that we are still remaining. Yeah, one activity is left. And I'm also being cautioned that today we may have to leave here before 5. I mean, leave the room, not leave the compound, but leave the room before 5. I'm told there are some other functions that are supposed to take place here. So I think that works in your favor, so that we can leave here quickly. But I think for this particular purpose, we want to move on to something that we were supposed to do. There is the whole issue about the policy to action matrix. And I just wanted to bring your attention to that. You have heard me asking the panelists 1 or 2 policy questions that they would wish for APMD to carry forward. Okay. I just want to go through this very quickly, if you allow me, so that we can see what is there. But there are a number of policy issues that were also discussed during the panelist discussion. Let me just start from there so that we can see. Let me start with the last ones so that we can agree on how we move on with this one. The last presentations in terms of the policy issues, we had about looking at availing real-time data, evidence-based. I think this was from Tahira, looking at providing that evidence base of the value of livestock in real time. I think this is something that can be picked up. We can elaborate on this one a little bit more. And then the whole issue about coordinated disease surveillance, and I think that can also be put together with the transhumans aspect. We can consider that, see how that can be done. And those were the 2 from Tahira. Then we had this whole issue about financial inclusion from Kelvin, and basically looking at, and I think this is the critical aspect that makes the difference. Yes, we have insurance, we have index-based insurance, but I think the critical aspect is that can that insurance be bundled? I think this is the point that you're trying to make, so that if we can pick that up with the policymakers and move this to the policy to action matrix, so that we don't just provide insurance alone, but we also provide bundled insurance that can take account of other things. That way you can have a number of issues being taken into effect. Jean-Marc, I think, emphasized the whole issue about dealing with non-tariff barriers. I think this is very critical for us. And basically that means the whole issue about harmonization of whether it is legislations, whether it is regulations, starting all the way from the policy itself. But I think the key thing with NTBs is, can we harmonize the regulations and the legislations that we have that kind of regulate trade in livestock. I think this is the point that, and you're still here, you can elaborate some more if we are in agreement. I think the second one was the whole issue about providing the livestock corridor infrastructure, so that it is not just providing the corridor. The corridor alone will not help much. As it were, it's a question of providing for those water points, resting stations, and so on, that will accompany the livestock corridor as it is. Then the whole issue, I think, about capacity building, I think that is there, especially in terms of conflict resolution. I think this is what was captured there. This is something that we cannot run away from, and I think some of the things that, sometimes we put emphasis on even just ours alone, but I think in the East African region we realized something very, very critical. When the war in Russia and Ukraine broke out, we thought we were immune. In fact, we were thinking, I mean, Russia and Ukraine, it's okay, let them sort their issues, they'll come back. But then we realized, like in Kenya, that 90% of our wheat was coming from those 2 countries that were at war. All our soybean were coming from, I think, Ukraine. So in effect, we realized that even though we are not there, but that war really affects us critically. So conflict is a very critical thing that we need to look at. Dr. Dereje, I think, emphasized this whole issue about land tenure. I think this is a critical one. We have communal land in many cases. There are some struggles with those communal lands in terms of where do we move to from here. They are not going to remain communal lands forever. I think some of those issues have to be addressed. But we know also as we address them, the whole issue about pastoral livestock is actually in danger. Bashiru emphasized this whole issue about animal production, and I think this is a question of improving production and productivity, but I think the emphasis there is is in terms of standards. If I got you right, Bashiru, you can elaborate. I think, can we produce for the market? I think this is the issue. It is not just a question of production. Can we meet the market requirements as we produce? This is another policy issue that we needed to look at. I think also, he also emphasized the livestock corridor infrastructure, especially certificates for animals and so on. I think this was also mentioned by our colleague from Chad in terms of the process. Building market information systems is another element that can assist us in this perspective as we proceed forward. So those are the ones that I captured towards the end as I requested the panelists to give us the 2 or so policy issues that they think we should move forward with. Now, the question that I want to put to you is, do we have any other additional ones that we need to add here? Is there something very critical that we have missed out? Yeah. Yes, Tahira, you can proceed.
Yeah, one thing I feel we've missed out is the curricular aspect. For example, we have so many agricultural economists, and most of them, you know, it's like crop plant, these things. Like, what about livestock? Really giving livestock economies a priority in our curriculum is something that policy need to consider. Thank you.
Maybe that's an issue for economists. Why don't they do livestock economics? Do we have economists in the house? Yeah, but I think the point is taken. I think the curricular issue, that is something that can be looked at. Okay, any other additional comments? Yeah. Yes, John Mack.
Yes, I forgot to add that part of the infrastructure for the corridors is also the joint management of rangelands, especially at the border regions. Most times that is a big cause of conflict and also climate issues. So at ECOWAS, we have tried to set up joint committees for the management of rangelands and pastoral lands in border regions, and that committee should be part of the capacity building that I was talking about.
This is between countries, border regions, yeah? Yeah.
Yes, in ECOWAS, there are so many rangelands and pastoral lands that are shared between countries. But if that is not managed jointly and properly, then you will have a lot of issues, and that's part of the concerns within the ECOWAS region.
Okay, as I understand it, this is part of conflict resolution. Yes, nipping it in the bud before it arises. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Any other comments? Yep. Yeah. Proceed, Andrew.
Yeah, the area around the digitalization.
Can you move the mic? Can you move the mic closer so that we can hear you?
Yeah, the area around digitalization, most like the e-vet certificate, something, areas around the traceability, those things around some digital trade systems, having some digital trade systems that allow you to hold documents for trade, traceability, etc. I'm saying this because in some other regions, it's very difficult to share information without a policy direction. For example, in the ESC, it was very difficult for partner states to share sensitive information without a framework. So these are some of the areas I want to talk about, like the information sharing platforms and all that.
Okay, if I ask your indulgence, Andrew, are you looking at the whole issue about harmonization? Yeah, because this is where it emanates from. If you have not harmonized your legislation and regulations, then the whole process of sharing information becomes a little bit challenging.
Yeah, there is one thing about harmonization and mutual recognition. Those are the very key issues. What kind of trade information do you want to share? But there is also the actual digitalization. If I want to move animals, and these animals, you need some documents from veterinary services, from what? You can share this information in advance with the other competent authority in advance without stopping to require this document for every consignment that arrives. So this is the role of digitalization, and it requires some policy. Otherwise, it's very difficult to even have some interoperable systems around this. Secondly, on the area of harmonization, as you mentioned, yes, that's still a policy issue, but I think it's not a big one since it's already being addressed, unless it's more about domestication. But at the continental level, at the REC level, most RECs already have frameworks around what to do with the harmonization, mutual recognition, notifications, etc. But perhaps it's more on at the country level, maybe if they want to domesticate and to ensure that the systems are harmonized across each of the member countries.
Okay. Yeah, I think that also arose during previous discussions when we were talking about the digitalization element and making them interoperable. I think sometimes we have even bigger problems. You know, even within the same country, if the interoperability is not provided for, it becomes a difficult thing to share the information. So I think that's a point that is well taken. Okay. Yes, any other concern? Okay, as we move forward, I just wanted us to review very quickly, if you allow me, some of the other points that were kind of shared earlier on, just for us to be sure that we have captured everything that we needed to do. Okay. Yeah, I think the issues that were raised, we have captured most of them. I think the one that I may want to look at, that we may have to add here, if you allow me, we have been talking about private sector, private sector, private sector. And the reason why we are here is that because you're wanting to promote private sector investment. And I think from a policy perspective, this is something that we cannot leave behind. We really need to emphasize the fact that we need an enabling environment for the private sector to thrive. I think this is something that I just wanted us to add in terms of the issues that we are looking at. That's one element. I think this came from Iqbal earlier. Okay. The transhumance issue, I think we have covered them in terms of the issues we have already looked at. Some of the others already covered. I think the other one that we have not covered on the last one, if you'll agree with me, yes, we have made some advances in terms of feed and fodder. But I think from a policy perspective, we still need to emphasize that. There are issues that arise, especially to do with feed reserves. I think this is something that needs to be emphasized. We talked about water as well. Those are some of the things that we need to look at in terms of infrastructure support, so that water provision and feed and fodder provision is given the due attention that it requires. Okay. There are others that also came earlier in the discussions. And I think this is, we have talked about this for many years. All these issues about early warning systems and so on, and the need to protect the assets. I think this was emphasized earlier on, I think, Kelvin. That whole issue about avoiding sales under distress. I think these are some of the things that we may want to look at as we proceed. Then one more issue that I captured, that in many cases, other sectors receive subsidies. I don't know whether this was the right perspective, but you can correct me. Other sectors receive a lot of subsidies, but when it comes to the livestock sector, this is something that is not quite useful. It's not been used quite a lot, but essentially it's not to depend on the subsidies, but to provide for that when necessary, particularly to facilitate the promotion of the private sector investment. I think this is something that we can look at as we proceed. Madam, you want to add something? Could you use your microphone for the interpreters? Yeah.
On the subsidies, I think one of the things that maybe has not been, maybe I didn't pick it up, but has not been properly addressed. In terms of the other sectors of agriculture, like crop production, you see that governments give seed subsidies, fertilizer subsidies to farmers, but they are not intended incentives towards issues like pasture or studies on pasture agronomy. There is very little incentivization in that. So I think that could also be considered as a policy action.
Yeah, I think this is why we are emphasizing the fact that we need, livestock-related subsidies. Yeah, because there are certain times when you may need it. It's not that you want to be dependent on it, but there are certain times when you need it just as much as the others need it. What we can share here is that we have been working on the NASIP document in Kenya, the National Agri-Food System Investment Plan, and Harrison knows about this one. What we have done in that document is to expand the subsidy bundle so that it is not just a specific element, but you have, if you're looking at inputs, then you provide inputs for both crops and livestock and even fisheries. So we have even included fingerlings in there so that subsidies are not just a crops issue per se, but it cuts across if you're looking at inputs in that regard. So this is what you're looking at, especially if you're looking at vulnerable and needy farmers. This is something that may have to be considered. So yeah, we may need to take it from that perspective. So those are the things that I picked up during the initial conversation. Let me just see if there was anything else that we left. Yeah, I think the energy issue is also a critical one in these areas if you're going to do cold chains. So that's something else. Let me just mark it up. Provision of energy. And you see, this is kind of, it's ironical in a way that in many of our areas where we suffer this energy deficit, that is when that is where the sun is most available. And people are moving to solar. So you find it a little bit strange that where you have abundant sunshine and we can make use of solar, and that's where we do not have that energy. I think this is a little bit ironical. So I think just changing the perspective in terms of the processes that we're having. Yeah, so that energy issues can be addressed, not necessarily from the national grid, but in terms of investment in solar energy, which is plenty in some of these places. Okay. I think from my perspective, that's what I captured. If I left anything out, please, my panelists and members, you can draw my attention if I left something. Fred, you have something to add? Yeah.
About research. I think that is talked about research. I'm saying that he talked about research. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Tahir, you want to?
No, extension services like community animal health, things like that. In regard to capacity, beyond trainings, investing in these extension services, because it is what really has helped the livestock production in earlier days, 1970s, 80s, but nowadays they are not given priorities. Actually, they compete with vets. So.
Okay, thank you for that. I know this issue about community animal health workers and so on has been there. They have their role, and I think we need to recognize that. Yeah, yeah. I know in some places things had gone far to the extent that some of the legislations had actually to be changed to accommodate some of these issues that we're discussing here. So I think for the benefit of member states, we may have to look at some of those issues so that they are carried forward. Okay. If you allow me, I want to bring this to a close so that we give these people good time. I think we are not badly off. We had been told to be out of the room by 5, but I think we are doing well. So I want to thank everybody for the participation. We will compile these policy issues so that we can present them. And I just wanted to invite Professor Ahmed for a minute, if you have anything to say before we close.
I think we already have very good information and on the policy background and all what we need and the policy to actions matrix. So I think we need now to sit and we consolidate all the information and prepare it for the endorsement by the ministerial segment tomorrow. So thank you very much for everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. For your information so that you don't get shocked tomorrow, I'm told this section of the room will be occupied, so we'll be confined to that other section of the room, okay? So when you come tomorrow, don't get shocked, okay? From this evening, from 5, they want to block here, and they'll be using this other side. But that doesn't prevent us from keeping our time so that tomorrow we start at 8:45, okay? So that we can continue with the discussions that we have tomorrow, especially in terms of these issues we want to look at in terms of securing political leadership for livestock trade and market activation. So I want to thank you very much. Please, let's put our hands together for ourselves. We have worked pretty hard. Please. Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm not sure whether tea is there, but I can gladly announce that there's supposed to be tea. So take the tea before you leave the place and have a good evening. Thank you very much.